Alright, so let's continue our coverage of the discrete time Fourier transform. So remember, in this case, we are looking at the Fourier representation of discrete time aperiodic signals. So my signal of interest is of the form xn, which is discrete time and aperiodic. And in the last lecture, what we had done is come up with what the form of the Fourier representation looks like for signals of this type. So specifically, my Fourier representation was of the following form: xn equals 1 by 2 pi, integral from 0 to 2 pi, so it's an integral of this capital X of omega. This is of course my dtft, or also called the spectrum associated with the signal, times e raised to j omega n d omega, right? So as I said, this is a continuum representation in terms of frequencies, because once you're dealing with aperiodic signals, it's no longer just a discrete set of phasors that come into the representation. You have a continuum of phasors, omega running all the way from 0 to 2 pi, that shows up in the representation, with capital X of omega, the dtft, basically capturing the weight associated with the phasor having frequency omega, right? So this is my representation, and the way you come up with the dtft itself is through this formula: summation xn e raised to minus j omega n, and this summation runs from minus infinity to infinity, right? So this is these are the equations that describe the discrete time Fourier transform and the inverse discrete time Fourier transform. One observation that we had made is that this discrete time Fourier transform is in fact periodic, with a period of 2 pi, which makes sense because of the fact that in discrete time, phasors which are separated by a frequency of 2 pi are essentially identical, right? So in this representation, it makes sense that the weight associated with a phasor would essentially be insensitive up to translations of 2 pi or its multiples, right? So this is perfectly natural. Another thing to point out here is that in this case, the time domain representation is a discrete time aperiodic signal. You can think of it as a sequence. The frequency domain representation of the same signal, or the spectrum of that signal, is in fact a continuous time periodic signal. Okay, and in the past, when it comes to discussions around duality, we have talked about the space in which the time domain representation lives and the space in which the frequency domain representation lives. So in the context of duality, this is a connection that we will return to going forward. All right. So this is largely a recap of what we did in the last lecture. At this point, let's go through a quick example. Okay, the simplest possible signal for which we can compute the dtft would be an exponential signal of the form a raised to n un, where, for simplicity of primarily graphing this out, let me assume that a is real valued and specifically a lies in the interval from -1 to 1. Okay, so therefore we have a very clean visual representation of what the signal looks like. Right, now to compute the discrete time Fourier transform of x, I would of course just apply this formula. So then I would have a summation, but again, because of the un, the effective range of the summation is just from 0 to infinity, a raised to n e raised to minus j omega n, right? Which with your background you should immediately recognize as a geometric sum whose value is 1 minus a e raised to minus j omega, right? So this is my dtft corresponding to the signal a raised to n un. Okay, so this might, now that we have a simple example like this, it might be worth trying to visualize what it is that this looks like. So let's do that. So remember, this is a complex valued object, the spectrum. So you would have to separately analyze the frequency and the phase and the magnitude of the spectrum. For simplicity, let us focus on the magnitude spectrum, right? So I want to plot mod of x of omega versus omega. Now remember, this is periodic with period 2 pi, so it suffices that I restrict my plot from minus pi to pi, because The entire signal is just a periodic replication of whatever I specify in the interval from minus pi to pi, right? Now, so let's first, I mean, I leave it as an exercise for you to figure out what the magnitude of x of omega works out to. You should be able to write a clean expression for it. But let me just tell you what the spectrum would look like. It turns out that the shape of the spectrum would change depending on whether A is a positive number or a negative number. So in particular, if A is positive, then the spectrum looks somewhat like this. Okay. On the other hand, if A is negative, then the spectrum looks shifted. It's a pi shifted version of the same picture. So the spectrum would look something like this. Yeah, that's bad drawing. There isn't a discontinuity here. It's yeah. Anyway, you guys are smart enough to figure out what the spectrum is supposed to sketch like. So this is what the spectrum looks like for A less than 0. Now, the reason I made this picture is to illustrate something. Okay, so oftentimes the spectrum, when it comes to discrete time signals, the spectrum is, as I've shown here, plotted from minus pi to pi. And the way to think about this is the region around omega equals 0, you should think of this as the low frequency components. Alright, so the region around omega equals 0, these are those phasors that are quote unquote changing the most slowly, right? On the other hand, the region around pi and minus pi, right? After all, what happens around pi is exactly the same as what will happen around minus pi because of the 2 pi periodicity. This you should think of as the high frequency components. Okay, so once again, in discrete time, the effective frequency range can be thought of as running from minus pi to pi. The behavior around omega equals 0 can be thought of as the low frequency behavior of the signal, whereas the behavior around plus or minus pi can be thought of as the high frequency behavior of the signal. Okay, so what the picture illustrates is that if A is positive, right? If A is positive, the signal is basically just a clean, it's a decaying exponential, right? In that case, the low frequency components are stronger than the high frequency components. On the other hand, when A is negative, you can verify that your signal basically is an oscillatory signal. It's decaying in magnitude, but it's oscillating between odd and even valued time indices. And those oscillations basically induce a difference in the spectrum, namely that the high frequency components become more pronounced as compared to the low frequency components. Right? This is caused by, in fact, the oscillations in the signal. Okay, so this is just a simple example. The thing to take away is that there is a different way of interpreting high and low frequencies in discrete time as compared to continuous time. In discrete time, low frequency is the region around omega equals 0 and high frequency is the region around omega equals plus minus pi. Okay, so with that in mind, let us now carry forward. So the next thing I want to talk about is convergence. After all, when it comes to any class of signals, I care about under what conditions my representation holds, right? So let's quickly recap what my representation equations are. I said that x of n is 1 by 2 pi times the integral from 0 to 2 pi x of omega e raised to j omega n d omega, and the spectrum itself is obtained by this summation xn e raised to minus j omega n from minus infinity to infinity, right? So the thing to ask is under what conditions is this DTFT well defined, and when will, for that particular DTFT, this particular representation hold exactly, right? And the short answer to that question is this is true so long as the signal under consideration is absolutely summable. Okay, so the DTFT exists and the representation, let's call this equation 1, and 1 holds if summation mod xn is finite. Okay, so if my signal is absolutely summable, then the DTFT is well defined, and moreover the representation of a signal as a generalized linear combination of phasors is in fact exact. Okay, so that's basically the convergence conditions for the discrete time Fourier transform. All right, so if this is clear.